Nishina wakes up to get ready for school. We get the earliest shower plot development on record as well, as she prepares to. After dying in the truck crash, he was reincarnated in a new world, and realizes that he's a baby. His mom thinks it's weird he's not crying at all, but then he begins pretending to cry. He sees that the air is filled with magical energy, and thinks that he has the power to finally realize his dream. He then poops himself, and begins crying again. He is born into a rich family that has produced dark knights throughout generations. Everyone has high hopes for his sister, but not him. Although he has all the greatest power, he hides it in the shadows of his sister and goes on to destroy bandits at night with his magical power. After destroying all of them, he finds a weird creature emitting large amounts of magic. He smiles, thinking that he will make this his new plaything to experiment. He throws it inside a shed and experiments on it for a month, until one day containing its magical overflow. The blonde elf girl comes out and he holds her. Before she wakes up, he gets in position for his first performance as the Eminence in the shadow. He tells her good morning, and she sees that she's finally gotten her normal body back. He tells her that she's free now. He tells her that she was cursed, and creates some bullshit story about Diablo and how it turned her into a blob of magical energy. He begins telling her who the mastermind behind this was, but he has no idea who to make up this time, so he tells her not to worry about it. She tells him that she really wants to know, and he sees the cult of Diablo on a bottle of whiskey, and tells her they were the ones who did this to her. He tells her that his mission is to stay in the shadows and destroy all evil, and that his name is Shadow. He asks her if she will follow him, and she tells him that she lost everything and was cast away as a hideous beast. Because he saved her, she will follow him through everything. He tells her they'll be against powerful people, and she tells him that she will never show mercy to evil people. She tells him that they will need to find other heroes and that they will need to expand their organization and collect funds. He tells her that they'll call their organization Shadow Garden, and her name will be Alpha. After 3 years had passed, he continued pretending to be an average knight and was practicing against his sister. He was fast enough to destroy his sister and make 20 moves by the time she made one, but kept hiding his power and letting her strike him into the water. On the day she was supposed to go to college, his sister had disappeared and been abducted. His new team had already scouted the whereabouts of the bandits, and they infiltrated their hideout. They tell the man that they know about the cult of Diablo, and they are here to destroy him. He rushes towards Alpha, but her agility allows her to dodge all of his attacks and slash him down. He takes out pills from a bottle and puts it in his mouth. He begins powering up and rushes towards Alpha, but as she dodges, he strikes his sword down and disappears. Cid realizes he's lost in this maze and sees the man running away. The man rushes towards him, but Cid parries his sword with just the tip of his sword. He tells him that he may have a lot of power, but he doesn't know how to use it. Cid tells him that he will teach him how to fight, and begins rushing around and giving him tips on how to use his power, and parries his sword with just his hand and slashes towards him. The man tells him that the darkness of this world is deeper than he could ever imagine, and Cid smiles, telling him that he will dive deeper, but the man puts the rest of his pills in his mouth, transforming into a giant. Cid dodges his attacks, and the man continues throwing his slashes down, but Cid stops his giant sword with just his hand, calling him disgraceful. He unleashes his magical power at full strength, telling him playtime's over. As the old man dies, he thinks that he was powerless against the darkness, but maybe this man can save them. Cid takes the locket and walks away after saving his sister. She goes to the capital the next day for school, and he wishes he could also go with her. Cid thinks that he will eventually get there too, and that he will put Alpha and the rest to work in the meantime. However, Alpha comes and tells him that it is their time to finally leave him, and this confuses him. A few years later, Cid remembers Alpha. He thinks that this is the end of his unwanted relationship, and the next day his friends apologize for ratting him out. As they get to school, they see Mr. Zenon and 2 other people. They ask to have a moment with Cid, and tell him that Princess Alexia didn't return home yesterday. Since he was the last person with her, they want to question him, and Cid realizes that he's in an extremely bad position. Under the ground, Alexia realizes that she's been abducted. Because this show's main plot is just girl getting abducted, a crazy doctor comes in, thinking that he's finally gotten royal blood. He injects a syringe in her, and she asks him what he will be doing with her blood. He tells her that her blood is demon blood, and that he will be using it to resurrect the demon. Meanwhile, Cid is pretending to let the guys torture him. He thinks that he can put up with the pain, but this interrogation happens to be such a minor character development, and that he can't let them outshine him. He pretends to beg for help and does his best to become a better background character. Alexia's blood keeps being drawn out of her, and she tells him that he shouldn't keep drawing blood out of her so she doesn't die. He tells her that he will keep her alive so he can continue to draw blood out of her. He tells her that he hates idiots because they destroyed his lab, and she calls him a poor thing because it must have been awful. He tells her that he needs to complete his research or be excommunicated. He begins yelling and kicking the devil. Alexia feels bad and reminds him that he should take her blood. He stops and brings a bowl of rice, forcing her to eat it. The devil looks over at him. Meanwhile, Cid is thrown out of the torture room. He goes home, thinking he could heal his wound instantly, but that it wouldn't be a very background character thing to do. Two men follow him, and as he walks, a cloaked woman tells him later, destroying the men behind him. He enters his room and finds Alpha sitting there waiting for him. She bends over and hands him a burger. He asks her why she's here, and she tells him that she's heard he got into trouble. He asks her how she's been doing, and she tells him that their missions are progressing and their cult is expanding. He thanks her for the meal, and she gets up and tells him to change his clothes. She tells him that he'll be blamed for the crime, and comes closer to him. She tells him that the cult was the one who kidnapped the princess because they wanted the royal blood. She begins undressing him, and asks him how his romance was with the princess. She gets on her knees, and tells him that she knows how hard he's been struggling. She tells him to lie down and that they will be getting ready for him. She asks him if she should dispose of the men who interrogated him, but he tells her that they deserve a reward for doing their jobs well. She tells him that Delta is waiting for him, and leaves. Later on, he thinks that he's prepared everything for this day, and sets up his room with all the expensive items he's collected to act like he's the perfect supervillain and complete his collection. He sits in his room for hours just for a girl to finally come in. This man has dedication. He tells her the night has come, and that it's a world of shadow. The moon is hidden tonight, so the entire night is filled with shadows. She tells him everything is in place, and that they have mobilized 114 shadow soldiers. He stands up, telling her that tonight the world will know them. This guy definitely watched Code Geass as a kid. He walks in an alley, and his two interrogators throw a shoe at him, attempting to plant evidence on him. They come towards him with their swords, but bodies filled with blood come falling down. A shadow comes and slashes him, and another one comes to end him. He tells them that by the time the sun is up, playtime will be over. The girl writes down all of his great movements in her journal. Delta is destroying their entire building in the meantime, and Alpha is overlooking the city. Alexia talks to the devil, asking her if it's hard to sleep with all the noise. The researcher comes back, thinking that everything is about to be lost. He takes out a syringe and shoves it into the devil. She tells him that he shouldn't do that, but he puts all the blood in her. She grows in size and slashes him down. The devil has been reborn, and Alexia thinks that her life is about to end. However, the devil just frees her and breaks the ceiling of the building to escape. Alexia begins to walk out with her sword, but sees that Mr. Zenon is waiting inside for her. She asks him what he's doing here, and he tells her that this is his facility. She gets angry, thinking that she was right for knowing something was wrong with this man. He tells her that he was collecting her blood to complete the crazy man's research, because it would allow him to get into a group that consists of the highest paid knights. He tells her that her sister would have been better, but he had to settle with her instead. She slashes at him and he apologizes for comparing her to her sister. She continues slashing at him, and he tells her that she'll never be more than an ordinary fencer. She tells him that she'll show him how ordinary she is. He calls her moves similar to her sister's and tells her he will show her the skills of the rounds. She rushes forward, but her sword disappears out of her hands and she is about to be slashed. He punches her down and tells her that she will never be like her sister. However, a man in pure black comes out of the shadows and introduces himself as Shadow. He tells him that he lurks in shadows in order to hunt the shadows. If you made it to this part of the video, you're a true Ice-Sky protagonist. So help me confuse all the background characters by spamming "Rip Shadow, I can't believe Sonic defeated him." That'll definitely throw all the NPCs off. Will Cid be able to destroy Mr. Zenon? And will Alpha be able to do anything against the giant demon running around? Blow this video up with likes for a part 2. Till next time, my fellow men of culture.